Okay guys, in this tutorial we're going to learn about functions. A function is basically a set of instructions that you can use over and over again. Like for example, let's say you want to write a program that sorts numbers numerically. Instead of you having to retype that code again and again, you can just type it once, and then when you want to use those sets of instructions, you can just use a name that refers those instructions again and again instead of having to type them. Okay, now we have two kinds of functions in PHP. We have the built-in functions and we have the custom functions. Now the built-in functions are those that you find within PHP itself. They are already designed for you in advance. And then custom functions are those that a programmer creates himself. Okay, so now let me start with a simple function here that is built inside PHP. I'm gonna use the date function. So I'm gonna create a variable here called let's say year, and then I'm gonna use a function called date. Now the way you use a function is that you type the word and then you insert your brackets, and then depending on that kind of function you need to provide information inside that those brackets. So in this case it's a string, so I'm gonna provide a string, and then I'm gonna type y with a capital letter actually. Now what this function does is that it gives you the year, the current year. Okay, so now I'm simply gonna print the result of that function. Okay, so I'm simply gonna say the year is $, then I'm gonna type the name of my variable year. Now I'm gonna refresh here. As you can see, it tells us the year is 2022. Now let's say I only want to print out the last two digits of the year. So to do that, I will just use a lowercase y, and then I'm gonna refresh here. You can see it prints out only the last two digits. Now if I want to print the month, I simply type m, refresh, and then it gives me the month. And then if I want to print the number that indicates the month instead of the textual representation of it, I'm simply gonna use a lowercase m, and I'm gonna refresh here, and then it gives me a number instead. And then if I want to print the day, I simply use d, and then it tells me it's the 16th today. Okay, so now there's also math functions. Let's say for example I want to find a square root of a number. Let's say I'm gonna create a new variable here called I'm gonna call it num, and then this time let's say I want a square root of 12. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna say the square root of 12 is, then I'm gonna type num here. You can see it gives me the square root of 12. And then I'm gonna create another math based variable here. This time I want a value that is to the power of something. Let's say for example I want 12 to the power of 2. In order to do that, I use the pow function, and it's gonna give me that. So here I'm gonna type 12 to the power of 2 is equal to, and then I'm gonna type p, and as you can see that's what it prints. And then let's say you want to just display a random number. There's also a built-in function for that. So I'm gonna create another variable here, call it r, and then I'm gonna use the rand function to return a random number, and then I'm simply gonna type this is a random number, then R. Let me refresh. As you can see, it's printing out a random number here. If I refresh again, you can see it constantly keep printing out a random number. Now let's say I want a random number from 1 to 10 instead of these large numbers. What I can do is I can put 1, 10. Now if I do this, it's gonna give me a random number from 1 to 10. So let me just refresh here. As you can see, it's printing out random numbers. Okay. Okay, now I've shown you the basics of built-in functions. Let's say now you want to create your own custom function instead of using these built-in functions. What you're gonna do is, the way it works is that okay, let me remove this code here, and then I'm gonna create a function here. The way you do it is you type the word function, the name of your function. I'm simply gonna say greetings, and then brackets, and then you put your, I forgot what they call these things.
Boy, if you don't,
What do they call them? Oh, curly brackets. Yeah, you put your opening curly brackets here, and then whatever that is inside these curly brackets will execute when you call this greetings function. So in this case, I simply want to say hello to programmers. Put a semicolon at the end. Now, if I refresh, you can see nothing happens here because all we did is just I've defined this function, but I didn't call it. Now I need to call it. In order to call this function, I'm going to type greetings, and this is how we call it. So I'm going to refresh here. You can see now hello to programmers is printed. I can also add other codes and say this is another line. I don't know what to type, so I'll just type anything here, and then you can see it says this is another line. Okay, now let's say you want to create a function that adds two numbers. So the way you do it is you're going to type function, and then I'm going to call this function add, and now there's going to be two arguments that I'm going to create. It's going to be the first number and then the second number. Okay, and then create your curly brackets, and then now what you're going to do is return a sum of these two variables here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say return first number plus second number, and then now I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna create a variable here called okay, let me call it sum, and then I'm gonna say add. Okay, the first number will be 12, and then the second number will be 15. So this means this function is going to add 12 plus 15. And then now I'm going to print out the result of these numbers. Okay, I'm going to type the sum of 12 plus 15 is and then type sum over here. Okay, and then I'm going to refresh here. As you can see, gives me that answer. Okay, you can also put any kind of argument. So let me create another function here. This one I'm gonna call it say my name. Okay, and then I'm simply gonna print out echo my name is, and then the variable. Okay, so when I call this function, I'm gonna create a variable here called my name, and I'm gonna say my name. I'm gonna put John. Remember, when something is in between codes, we call it a string. I'm gonna explain what a string is in the next section. Okay, so now I'm gonna print out this variable. No. I should be just calling this. Okay, so I'm gonna say my name, and as you can see, it says my name is John. Okay, guys, that's about it when it comes to the basics of functions. I'll see you on the next tutorial when we talk about strings.